Jeff. Yeah? We, waiting all day for something, or can you hook a homie up over here with the light near him? You know? The light near him? Shh. Oh, Jeff, stop it! Not that. Light, turn that light off. What are you trying to do? Make me look bad in front of the DP or something? I'm sorry, sir. Sorry. What's going on? You know I already got a stressful job. I want this light. What fixture number is that? Oh. Guys, what number is that? 101? Oh, 121. Shh. 121. Okay, you got the number? Okay, here's 121 at full. Can we turn on the light now? Oh, Jeff, it's what? I wanted like 10%, not 100%. What are you trying to do? Blind everybody over here? Down 10. Thank goodness. Sorry again, sir. Jeff, yo, that don't look like the color that I'm thinking of in my head. I'm thinking of like 3800 Kelvin, 50 points of tint, 25% crossfade into pure blue. What's going on? Can you make that happen or what? What's going on over here? Thank you. Now we can start lighting the set. This guy.
Well, if you told me that from the beginning, we wouldn't look like such idiots. Oh, hey, Tom. Clear communication is everything on a film set, and if you don't have it, you gotta get it together. I wanna start with a couple pro tips for my lighting console programmers. LCPs for short. Unless the person behind the console is doing channel 1 at 50, channel 2 at 25, they're more than a board op. They're a programmer because they are programming the console to tell it what to do, how to transition from one color to another, fade up and down, run an effect, all of that. Now, if it's one thing you get out of this video, it's don't do what your boss tells you to do. Oh, come on, guys. Do what they want you to do. And I say that with the best intention at heart. For example, I've had gaffers many times tell me, park this fixture. They don't want to park the fixture. They just want to make sure that it doesn't move during the next take. If I parked that fixture, I'd bring myself more trouble because it wouldn't be saved into the queue properly if I ever had to go back to this setup. So use your best judgment. Some gaffers are more technically minded than others and are more into calling out numbers. Others, not so much. Set both of you up for success by utilizing groups to your advantage. If, say, a Vortex 8 goes in to become a key light bounce, name it the key light bounce, so that when the gaffer says, hey, take that bounce or the key light down to 25%, you can simply grab that group without either of you having to fumble for the number. It doesn't matter if there are 50 lights in that group or just one. And if you add another light to that bounce, just add it to the group. Make it easy on both of you. Which leads me to gaffers. I'm hoping I can give you a little look into our world so that you can equip yourselves with some key terminology which will go a long way in communicating with your LCP. This also applies to DPs who want to be active participants in lighting their set. One major thing I don't feel enough gaffers or DPs do is know what gear they have on hand and on their truck and what it can do. There's nothing more frustrating than a gaffer constantly asking you to take a sky panel down to 2500 Kelvin. Unless you're in XY mode, that sky panel only goes to 2800 Kelvin. A Light Matte Series 2 is not full color, and an Astera tube at 10% doesn't even look like it's on. How are you supposed to utilize the tools you have if you don't know what they can do? You should be well aware of what the fixtures you've rented are capable of so that you can guide your LCP into what you want the fixture to do so that they can pick out the best mode for that fixture for that set and plan accordingly. If you want to do, say, a pixel effect for a cop car, make sure that you tell that to your LCP ahead of time so that they can appropriately address and profile that fixture to do that within their data scheme. For example, take a Titan tube. Most of the time, we don't need it to strobe. So I turn the strobe off and I want the typical film profile, which has CCT and tint, and I can crossfade that into RGB mode. Mode 89. That is awesome for me for most film shoots. But if the gaffer says, he wants it in pixel mode, that is now 7 channels per pixel. So one tube is 112 channels split across 16 different pixels, meaning that you can only fit 4 of these fixtures on one universe. That's only half a case of Titans. If I'm doing a set with like 70 of these in the air, that's a lot of data to manage if I'm 4 tubes to a universe. But if they don't need to be in pixel mode, I could fit all 70 of those tubes on one universe. Or maybe they're just doing party colors and we don't need CCT and tint. We could utilize another mode such as RGB or dimmer plus RGB mode and get 8 tubes on a universe. So let your LCP know as much as you can about what the lights will be doing so that they can save you money by allotting the appropriate amount of data. Less nodes, less splitters, less cables, less time to rig. If you call for a light on the day to do something totally different than what it is set up to do, like a pixel chase when it's in one pixel mode, your programmer is gonna have to do a major adjustment to get it switched over, as it's probably going to overlap everything in the universe it's in. So it'll probably have to be relinked to a different transmitter or cabled to a different universe and readdressed and profiled, which all takes time. For the DPs watching this, knowing cameras nowadays will only get you so far. But knowing how to light, I argue, isn't enough either. You really need to learn what lights are out there and what they can do, because those are your paintbrushes. You don't have to be an expert on everything. That's why you have collaborators. Nor do you have to know what profile you want your specific lights in. But if you can communicate a clear vision for how you want to use your lights with a general idea of what different lights can do, your gaffer and programmer can help guide you into using the right tools for your shot. Maybe you want to do a billboard effect of changing lights like a billboard. If you're not seeing it on camera, do you really need that LED wall? Perhaps this can be done with a pixelated fixture running in an intensity and color effect. Now, if you don't know how that even looks or what like a pixel effect on an S360 looks like, how do you know what you can achieve with your different tool set? You should also know how you like to work. A lot of DPs and gaffers think in terms of stops. I want this light 1 stop lower. Well, you can actually achieve that just by setting the LED's dimmer curve to linear. In linear mode, half of the intensity of what the light is currently at is 1 stop lower. That's just how linear dim curves work. So if the light is at 80% and you want it 1 stop lower, that's 40%. It's nice and very workable for level adjustments on set. But if you plan on doing any kind of fade up or down, especially during a shot where it's very close to camera, you're probably better served in a different dimmer curve, like exponential mode, which would ease the fixture in and out of that low end so that you don't get as big of a jump when the LEDs turn on. Communicate that to your LCP ahead of time, because once those lights are rigged in the air, the dimmer curve can be difficult to change. Along those lines, know how to communicate effect adjustments. This is a big one. If you think of effects going from one value to another value, there are 4 basic types of effects. Step-based effects, so they go from one value directly to another value and back down again, just like an instant pop, 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 pop. Ramp effects, which means they take time to build up to the next step, then drop back down to the first step. Burst effects, which means they jump to the second step and then take time to go back down to the first step. And finally, sine wave effects, which is a smooth gradual transition from one step to the next step. At each of these steps, you can put a hold time on either end. So if I went from say 0 to 100, instead of it having to go immediately back down to 0, I can have it hold for say a second or however long at the second step. So if you tell a programmer to create a fire effect, maybe they started out with a step-based effect and it's just very jumpy, but you want to smooth it out. You can say you want the fire effect to be more of a sine wave-based effect than a step-based effect, and that will help your programmer out a lot. Or if a flicker effect is just jumping around too much, ask for the off time to be longer so that it's off and then it just pops on every now and then. Or maybe you want a longer flash, so the on time should be longer. those are all very actionable effect adjustments. In a similar vein, knowing how to talk through color adjustments is a priority on a film set. We're starting to see more gaffers prefer to use XY, which is cool, although most consoles still aren't really set up to use XY. Plus, it requires that you are constantly using a color meter to set a color, which isn't bad, it's just a different workflow that not everybody is into. The one thing that I can tell you is that gels are dead. We are no longer putting half CTS plus chocolate on our lights or medium blue-green plus quarter green. So you're not gonna get far by trying to tell your LCP to stack different gels on an LED. If it's not XY, we should be starting to talk more in terms of hue saturation. That is way easier to understand. You want something more saturated? Great, you add saturation or decrease saturation. You wanted a different color? Now you have a hue wheel that you can navigate, more green, more red, more blue. Those are easy adjustments to navigate on a hue sat wheel. Plus, some of the fixtures allow you to change the white point of the fixture. So if you are in a color that you like, but say you need it cooler or warmer, your LCP can simply adjust the color temperature of the fixture from like 3200 Kelvin to 5600 Kelvin to get that cooler vibe. When it comes to building looks or cues, try to do it sequentially. Don't build backwards because it's just not how consoles were designed. You're going against how the console thinks. So if you're using a lot of moving lights, your programmer has a lot of parameters that he or she has to keep in track of in order to get the movers in the right position with the right gobo and the shutter and everything before they turn on. You may think that you are helping your LCP because you set everything up and now you just turn everything off and that's Q1, but that's harder to do because now if something changes, they're gonna have to think through the consequences of that change because the lights aren't set up to pre-mark in that way. And you don't need to necessarily understand how all of that works, just that it's better if you can build cues sequentially, even if there are no movers. This goes for anyone talking to the programmer, gaffers, DPs, electrics. When you call out a change, always start with the fixture number or what that light is, because your programmer can't do anything until he or she has that number. If you say, so this is a new light, I want it at 10% and 4000 Kelvin, cool, but now I have to wait for a number before I can do anything because my console is expecting a number for me to type in before I can input any other information. And if it's a while before the crew gets that to me, I'm kind of stuck. You may be already telling me the next adjustment, and unless I have a pen and paper to write down the changes, it's inefficient, especially if you blitz through a bunch of changes for us to make all at once with no fixture numbers. Ideally, call out the color temperature before you call out the level. Now, this isn't a requirement, it's just that most gaffers want to see the light come up in the correct CCT. So if you specify that ahead of time, I want fixture 201 at 4300 Kelvin, 50%, we can make that happen a little smoother. Also, when you call out for a change to happen on set, communicate with your LCP ahead of time how you would like verification to be done, as a lot of programmers are not on set, so they need some kind of verification that that actually happened. If you say, can I get fixture 101 at 2800 Kelvin full up, most of us are gonna make that change pretty quick. So once it's done, do you want me to say 101 at full as a quick little verification? Or maybe once you see the change, you say, okay, thanks. Or do you want us to just not say anything, and if we don't hear from you in like 3 seconds, we'll assume that you saw that happen and everything is well. Some crews like their walkies more silent than not. Whatever you like to do, just let your programmer know because everyone works differently. Now, also, don't be impatient. We may be working on something in blind to improve our workflow to make us faster for you. Give us 3 seconds, and if we don't say anything or you don't see a change, then say something. But it's often faster for us to use both hands at the console to get out of blind, type in your change, than to grab my mic, say copy, and then make the change. This next tip goes out to the whole electric crew. Walkie etiquette. If you're asking your programmer to do something and you aren't the gaffer or DP, please tell them a quick description of why you are asking that. Hey Jeff, can you take out 101? We're going to repatch it. That way, I know you aren't relaying a command from the DP or the gaffer, so in the console, I shouldn't update my cue or look so that it's saved, because that lamp is probably gonna go back to the previous level. And if I saved over it, then I don't have that level anymore. If you're on a set that uses comms and the LCP is hooked up in one ear with their comms and their headset to the electric channel in their other ear, some LCPs prefer to get a little heads up before you tell them a command, because they may be right in the middle of making a super important change for the DP in one ear, and now they have you squawking some long run-on command in their other ear, and you're just gonna have to wait and repeat it in a minute when they're done. Hey Jeff, yeah, go for Jeff. Can you take out 101 so that we can repatch it, please? Sure. If I'm busy, I'll try to say, hold on, so that you know to check back in with me later, or after I'm done, I can come back and say, hey, what's up? I'm free now. Also, let us know if you turned off a light and take it off set so that we don't think it's still on set and have it tracking through all of these cues, and then it comes back and it just gets confusing. Oh, no, we removed that 3 shots ago. Thanks, guys. Lastly, gaffers, fight for your crew. In a time when the production smackdown on crew has become the all-time worst, crew feel like they are expendables, used up and thrown away from production to production to production without a regard for their humanity. We won't feel like helping out a production any more than the minimum if we aren't getting a fair deal. Maybe you've heard this before about the consultant, but there was this engineer who worked at this company for 30 years and he finally retired. Well, one day, one of the company's multi-million-dollar machines went out and they couldn't fix it. They called everybody they knew. Nobody could fix it. So they call him up, beg him to come out, say they'll pay anything. He says, sure, I'll fix it. It's gonna be $10,000. They say, great, let's do it. He goes to the company, sizes the machine up and down, looks all around it, presses a few buttons, then says, aha! Takes out a white Sharpie, marks an X on a component. He says, swap this out and it will work again. So he sends an invoice and the company calls him back. This is outrageous, $10,000? We need to see an itemized list. All you did was draw an X on the machine. So he sends a new invoice. 1 pen mark, $1. Knowing where to put it, $9,999. What often people, especially producers, but sometimes gaffers as well, fail to realize is that it's not about the equipment. It's about the people, their personalities, and their skills behind the equipment that make a production go smoothly. Your programmer's makeshift board they put together or little Blackout setup may not have cost a fortune, but the time they took to learn it and the ins and outs of DMX and networking to a point where they can quickly react to all of your commands on the console and troubleshoot problems on set for you is what you want to compensate them for. Fight for your crew, for their equipment fees, for their kit rentals, and they will be motivated to help make the shoot as smooth as possible. A little bit goes a long way for crew morale. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed it and found it useful, share it, give it a like, subscribe so that I can make more of these videos for you. Let me know what you'd like me to cover down below, and I will see you in the next video.